Everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a review video of To Speak for the Trees, My Life's Journey from Ancient Celtic Wisdom to a Healing Vision of the Forest by Diana Beresford-Kroeger. And this was the Book Naturalists book club pick for the month of March. This is a book by a woman with Irish heritage, so it also fits in with the Irish Readathon, and I found this book to be quite a delight. So this is a combination of memoir and discussion of Celtic plant lore, basically. So the first 2/3 of the book is the author's memoir of her whole life, basically, from her childhood all the way up through present day. And then the last third of the book is a description of each letter of the Celtic alphabet with a tree that is associated with that letter, and then a description of the uses that that tree was put to by ancient peoples in Ireland, and also other ruminations by the author about that particular tree. Beresford-Kroeger is a woman who was born to an Irish mother and an English father, and her parents died quite young and left her an orphan. She was then raised by a bachelor uncle for part of the year, and then in an Irish village up in the hills by an entire village of sort of distant relatives, I would say, who took her in and raised her and imbued her with a lot of ancient wisdom from their culture. And the very first part of this book, she's a very young child. She's describing what happened after her parents passed away unexpectedly. And she did not have an easy childhood by any stretch of the imagination. It was difficult to read about how she was neglected as a child. The adults around her didn't seem to know what to do with a kid. And so she was just left on her own a lot. And it was really, really heartrending to read that part of her story. But in the end, it all comes right, because her bachelor uncle, while he wasn't really very focused on how to raise a child, he did care for her, and he continued to allow her to go each summer and spend the summers with her extended family up in this little village. And that was really the saving grace of her childhood, because that particular group of people, that community, decided that they needed to impart upon her all of their knowledge and wisdom that they had been taught from their ancestors, and that she was basically going to be the vessel within which they housed all of their knowledge. And so each person in the community took it in turn to teach her something, whether that would be how to weave a basket, or it would be the uses that certain plants would be put to in terms of medical use, how to, cut wheat and stack it properly so that it would dry and be able to be used all throughout the year, how to tend animals, how to take care of children, how to take care of the house, all those things, and really taught her a lot of very important information that she was able to use throughout her life. And then on the other hand, when she spent time in the city, with her bachelor uncle, she discovered her love of learning and of reading. There's a particular anecdote in here. She's quite young, and she first understands that she has a photographic memory. That was simply really a delightful thing to read about. It really resonated with me. And then just her love of books and learning really spoke to me as well. She figures out early on that she's all about science, and that's what she really cares about, and that's what she wants to study. And she's determined that she's going to go on to higher education and learn all she can learn about basically the stuff that she was taught from her Irish family about how to use plants for medicinal purposes, how she could take that and marry that with more Western-centered learning at a higher educational level. So she ends up with a degree, I think, in biochemistry. I want to read this blurb on the back of the book, because I think it really explains the path that Beresford-Kroeger takes in her life. And this is from Annie Prue. In her youth in Ireland, Diana Beresford-Kroeger received an extraordinary and unique education in traditional Celtic plant lore. At university in Canada, she specialized in biochemistry and merged what she learned and observed into her signature studies of trees, augmented by First Nations forest wisdom. This autobiography of learning ways to heal the damaged earth and break the tightening grip of climate crisis offers a rational and inclusive way to keep our future. And that part, the first 2/3 of this book, really does take us through that journey. She ends up after college in Canada, and the parts about her trying to be a scientist, study science in a laboratory setting as a woman in mid-20th century Canada was infuriating and enraging. And if you've done any reading about how women were treated, particularly in the science field in that time and place, how their discoveries were co-opted by their male colleagues, how they were systematically denied promotions or opportunities for funding or for research positions, how they were basically told by all the men around them that they didn't deserve to be in the lab, that they should be home having babies, getting married and having babies and keeping the house. Just infuriating. And really, it's amazing that any women ever studied science back in those days. It's hard enough in the modern age. It was really tough back in those days. But she ends up, getting frustrated with traditional science, and she and her husband establish a property in Canada where they gather trees, all kinds of trees that originally were found in Canada and maybe are very rare or even no longer known to exist in the wild. They get clones or they get specimens from those particular species and grow them on their property and basically have a heritage site for all different kinds of trees and shrubs and plants that were known to exist in northern North America and have, for whatever reason, become very rare or unique. I think that's a fabulous life's work right there, all on its own. Not to mention she's written various other books. There's a documentary, which I have not yet watched, but there's a documentary out there that she's produced that sounds like would be really amazing to watch as well. And so let's I always like to read a little piece from the book just so you get an idea of the writing style. So I really, really liked this particular paragraph. There is never a day spent outside that you don't learn something. It might be something small, but that small thing might also be a key to something very big. The discovery of those small things and of the ways they connect to one another and ripple throughout the whole web of life, that is one of the true beauties of nature. That is what I sought to understand and cultivate. I love that. That's very much my philosophy as well. And this paragraph I really loved as well. A forest is a sacred place. I believe that with all my being. I have felt the proof of it, and so, I'd argue, has anyone who has set foot in one with an open heart. But knowing that it is a sacred place doesn't mean I'm closed off to the idea of people benefiting from the forest, even financially. We all need wood, in our paper, in our houses, in our lives. The medicines available in the forest are the second most valuable gift that nature offers us. The oxygen available there is the first. We don't need to be afraid to use that bounty, but we do need to understand it enough to respect it for the miracle it is. And that, again, I very much believe in that philosophy as well. I very much believe in the appropriate and balanced use of a resource along with conservation of a resource. I believe that there is a balance to be found between, something that we need to use for our society and also like completely destroying that particular resource. So I loved the fact that she sees nuance, it's not just black and white. I think that there's danger in that when you're talking about environmental issues to be too rigid in your approach to trying to save the things that you care about. So I love that very much. The parts of this that I found less able to connect with was the last third of this book, where, as I said, it's basically a recounting of each letter of the Celtic alphabet and a tree that is associated with that letter. And so you get 2 or 3 pages of basically vignettes that tell about that particular tree and what how ancient peoples used that particular resource, how it's used today, what its status is in the country of Ireland. And I just felt like it was a very, each chapter or each section about each letter was just a bunch of paragraphs that felt very disconnected, and it didn't flow really well. It didn't seem like each bit of information was really designed to be put together. So I would have appreciated if each bit that she's talking about was actually told in a vignette style with a little space in between each paragraph. I think that would have been a better format for that particular part of this book. But even with that slight criticism, overall, I really, really enjoyed this book and found it delightful, and I'm super glad that we picked it for the March read of the Book Naturalists Book Club. So, what will we be reading in April? For April, we have a book that fits in with Aussie April, the particular reading project to read Australian authors, and this is Call of the Reed Warbler, A New Agriculture, A New Earth by Charles Massy. And this book is, I don't know very much about it, but I believe that it is about agriculture and particularly food systems from an Australian perspective, how food and farming fit into our world today in the present, the importance of food and farming to all of us. And it is a chunker. So it's, over 400 pages long. So, but this will be our April read for Book Naturalists. And I haven't read something specifically about agriculture in a long time. So that is a theme that I am very interested in. So I'm looking forward to reading this book and also to reading another Australian author. I hope you will join us for that in the month of April. I hope that you did get a chance to pick up To Speak for the Trees. If you did read this book this month in March, please let me know down below what you thought of it. And if you think you'll be able to join us for Call of the Reed Warbler in April, I'd love to hear that as well. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.